Sakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back, although late, 40 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m., 40 minutes after which we should have already been here. But apologies on that. Next time we'll do better. But for those of you that will join us, please do accept our sincere apologies for the lateness, and to all our usual suspects that wait for these broadcasts to chip in and listen to what we have to say, especially in the aftermath of Super Sunday. But part of the reason as to why I was a bit late is because I was trying to keep tabs on that game between Inter Milan and Lazio, in what appears to be a very, very physical game. Inter Milan leading at the interval by a goal to nil. So, I spent some time, having my eyes sighted on that game in as far as tonight's broadcast was concerned. So please forgive the lateness. That game is into halftime. Lautaro Martinez's third-minute goal, thanks to an assist by Alessandro Bastoni, gives Inter Milan the lead at the interval. But anyways, before I proceed any further, allow me have our audios tested, make sure everything does check out before we go any further in this particular broadcast tonight. Apologies. Think on mobile we should be okay. Audio should be okay, really. Unless otherwise, I do not know. Unless there's an external experience that says otherwise. Meanwhile, Barcelona are 2-1 up against Celta Vigo. That game is into the 46th minute as we speak. So those are games that are currently ongoing. In as far as the Sunday kickoff score, the Barcelona game kicked off a quarter an hour after the Inter Milan game had kicked off. In fact, I think I should look out for that Barcelona game as well. For some reason, it had eluded me, or it had slipped out of my mind that it was going to be on cards. But quickly, let's see who are the goal scorers for Barcelona. Lewandowski in the 10th minute from the penalty spot, and in the 37th minute, it was Robert Lewandowski, while Carreira was the goal scorer for what turns out to be a mere consolation going into halftime at the moment for Barcelona in that regard. We'll keep tabs on that game as we go into tonight's broadcast, where we'll predominantly be speaking about Manchester City's emphatic victory against Liverpool on Super Sunday. A victory that is not surprising, but one I had not predicted. Absolutely not surprising. Manchester City very, very dominant in that game. We're going to talk about Jeremy Doku giving a prime Eden Hazard vibes in today's game. If he can be that consistent, if he can be consistent delivering that. Meanwhile, Celta Vigo have the equalizer against Barcelona before halftime. It's now 2-2 as we speak. So, looks like. But meanwhile, because these two go hand in hand, so allow me give you the result that Real Madrid earlier on against Rayo Vallecano shared the spoils in a goalless draw. So Barcelona really want to win here to make sure that they can at least close in on that gap as we speak, because they've accumulated 28 points in 11 games. Now, if they win here, they could go to about 31 points, level with Real Madrid. So really, it's out there. But what a brilliant strike! What a brilliant strike that is! Wow, beautiful goal. That goal that has restored parity for Celta Vigo by Iglesias. I mean, just fantastic. Just go, if you can get an online feed, I don't know, you can go and try and search for it on X. Just go and check out that brilliant goal. by Iglesias, which was the equalizer for Celta Vigo against Barcelona. Trust me, it's really, really worth it. It's really, really worth it. The way he curls that ball into the top corner. He's been amazing. He's been really, really amazing. Meanwhile, I just want to confirm one thing. That's for Barcelona. And it's still Wojciech Szczesny in the Barcelona goal. I thought Joan Garcia had returned, but just not yet. So, anyways, we will also bring you the results. We got some predictions right. No perfect scores this weekend in as far as our Premier League predictions go, but I think we're pretty delighted with how we performed in terms of especially most of the predicted victories. So, Nottingham Forest winning, pretty much like we predicted, not perfect score. Aston Villa winning, again, not perfect scores, but, winning. I mean, Aston Villa really, really thumped FC Bournemouth. I expected Bournemouth to be beaten, but not in the manner in which they got beaten, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. If that makes sense for you guys, So, anyways, let's quickly start on that very front in the Premier League, because Super Sunday action wrapped up match day 11 of the Premier League. Guys, let me start on this very note, because I sat here over the course of this weekend and predicted that Newcastle would get beat by 2-1. Well, it was even better. They got beat 3-1. Of course, they had the red card coming in the second half, I think around the 77th or 74th minute for Dan Burn, 73rd minute for Dan Burn. Igor Thiago scored a brace in that one being a penalty that was a result of Dan Burn's foul, and they made it 2-1 at the time. But, Harvey Barnes had scored to give Newcastle the lead in the 27th minute, and then Kevin Schade scored to restore parity. That was in the second half, in the 56th minute, and then Igor Thiago from the penalty spot in the 78th minute, and then subsequently, the reason as to why the red card is given in the 73rd and you have the penalty taken in the 78th minute is because there's a couple of checks, VAR checks in there, and then in the 55th minute of stoppage time, when Newcastle were really, really trying to see if they can push for an equalizer, when they went on to, of course, unfortunately, they lost the goalkeeper, Nick Pope, to an injury, so he had to be replaced by Aaron Ramsdale. Of course, they threw on players like Anthony Elanga, players like Joe Willock, to try and help find that equalizer. But instead of getting the equalizer, they instead conceded on the other side, and Brentford won that game by 3-0. Now, Brentford, for those of you that are not keeping track, have become a giant killer at the GTEC Stadium, because we are talking, they played at the GTEC Stadium, they played two teams that finished within the top 5 last season, and then also played Man United. They beat up against Liverpool by 3-2. They beat Manchester United by 3-1. Now, they've beaten up against Newcastle by 3-1, all at the GTEC Stadium. Then, if you care to remember, the other top 6, of course, Man United not in the top 5 teams from last season, but it's a big, Man United is a big team nonetheless. But for those of you that care to remember, they went away to Chelsea and shared the spoils in a 2-2 draw. So, there's something really impressive about Keith Andrews' Brentford. One, whereas they concede goals, they defend really, really well. They're very physical side, they're very fast, they're quite athletic, and they won't go down without a fight, especially at home, So, at home also, they played Manchester City there this season and lost that game by 1-0. Meanwhile, Barcelona have the third, heading into halftime, goal scored by Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal has given Barcelona the lead going into halftime. So that game is into the 4th minute of stoppage time of the first half. So Lamine Yamal there scoring to make it 3-2 for Barcelona. So I thought Brentford is a team that we ought to, take seriously. More like Sunderland are, at home. Of course, overall results are quite different in as far as where Brentford stand and where Sunderland are. But that victory is of great significance to that Brentford side, because it takes it puts them in 12th place with a tally of 16 points. Now, 16 points, that means that's 4 points off the top 4, because actually 3 points off the top 4, because Sunderland, who are in fourth place, have 19 points. So if you compare them to a 12th place Brentford, then they're only 3 points apart. And particularly, this is what I said. You remember yesterday, Chelsea, when they were winning, Chelsea came into yesterday's game against Wolverhampton Wanderers, which they won by 3-0, when they were 8th. By the end of match day 11 for them, they had moved second, waiting for Man City to play. Man City, who played today and have won. And I told you that the lowest that Chelsea could drop was third. And suddenly things have changed. Now, guess what? Liverpool, who are within the top 3 or within the top 4 prior to match day 11, are currently 8th on the Premier League log. But guess what? They're only 8 points behind the league leaders, Arsenal. They're only They're only 2 points behind Chelsea, who are in third place, and only 4 points behind Manchester City. So, when you read out the Premier League table and tell people where their teams are positioned, it feels, in the context of the title race, it feels a bit misleading. But in the grand scheme of things, when you take a keen eye on the table, you can see that the point gap is really small. Is really small. In fact, when you look at the team in 10th place, which is Crystal Palace disappointed us, shared the spoils in a goalless draw against Brighton. They have 17 points. That's 9 points off the top of the table. That means the team that is placed 10th on the Premier League table and are only behind by 9 points of the summits. That's why I keep telling you that mathematically, very many teams are still in this, because if you're a team that is placed 11th and 12th, 16 points, that means you're only 10 points behind Arsenal. And guess what it takes? 2 draws for Arsenal, 2 losses, and suddenly that margin is significantly reduced. So that's why I keep reminding people that you ought to keep an eye on the number of points gap. It's very minimal. All you need is to go on a good run, win 3 games in a row, and then suddenly you're right up there in the title conversation. Of course, for Man United, they've slipped in the last 2 games. They would have hoped to at least have 1-1, but I think they will take a point. They'll take solace in knowing that out of a possible 15 points, they got at least, I think, 11 points. I do not think that's a bad, tally. Anyways, like I told you, in Crystal Palace game against Brighton, that one finished 0-0. Would not get this. They failed us. My prediction, I think, had been a 2-1 victory for Crystal Palace. And then Aston Villa beat up against Bournemouth by 4-0. Emi Buendia scored a brilliant free kick in the 28th minute. Amadou Onana from the outside of the area. Beat George Petrovic on the near post to make it 2-0, and then Ross Barkley scored in the 77th minute, as well as Daniel Mallet, who came off the bench because Ollie Watkins started in that one. Meanwhile, Ollie Watkins, I do not want to say Ollie Watkins missed chances, but Bournemouth defended really well against Ollie Watkins. But he had some moments where he himself could have gotten his name on the score sheet, but it was never meant to be. I think it was Morgan Rogers who provided the assist for Amadou Onana's goal. So, brilliant stuff from Unai Emery's, aside. And then again, here's the thing. Aston Villa, last weekend, for those of you that remember, lost to Liverpool by 2-0. And then suddenly, it felt that they had gotten that slump in what had been a good run of form for them. Well, they recovered, and that victory takes them to 18 points, and that means 6th place. Now, there are about 4 teams that have 18 points. A 5th place Tottenham Hotspurs, a 6th place Aston Villa, Man United, and Liverpool. In fact, there are 5. Add Bournemouth to that list. 5 teams have 18 points. So this is how tightly contested this Premier League title is going to be, and any run for Europe, So, of course, perhaps at some point in the season, gaps may begin to develop in these respective positions. But for now, you have 5 teams. You have 5 teams that are tied on 18 points. And those 5 teams, the team placed 4th is only a point ahead of them, and the one placed 3rd is only 2 points ahead of them. That means 1 loss for Chelsea, any of these ones win, they jump up. And it's just that simple. It's just that simple, So that's the context of the league table in as far as results are going. Then the other game was between Nottingham Forest and Leeds United. Our prediction on the channel had been a 2-0 victory for Nottingham Forest. I thought, I just had it in my gut feeling that Nuno Espirito Santo was going to register his first victory as a Nottingham Forest manager in his 3rd Premier League game in charge of Nottingham Forest. And they won, beating up against Leeds by 3-1. Ibrahim Sangare opened the scoring in the scored a 15th minute goal to cancel Leeds' lead by Numenka in the 13th minute, and then Morgan Gibbs-White in the 68th minute, and then the first minute of stoppage time, Elliot Anderson stepped up from the penalty spot to score to make it 3-1. Now, particularly, meanwhile, Marcus Rashford provided the assist for Robert Lewandowski's second goal. I mean, just puts the ball in between the legs of the goalkeeper there. Hi, LFC. How are you doing, my brother? Welcome back from that Sunday action. Sorry, Liverpool lost, but I think you'll acknowledge that Manchester City were the better side of the day. They were just better in many aspects, and we're going to discuss that game. What's going to happen? No, let me know. I'm scared of Man City. I must be honest. I'm scared of Manchester City. I do not know what you infer to that what is going to happen. Manchester City were better. Indeed, Manchester City were the better team. So, in the context of the Premier League table, that victory for Nottingham Forest doesn't lift them out of the bottom 2. They're still second from bottom, but at least it's something. I think that is their second victory this season. Their first victory came against Brentford. They beat up against Brentford by 3-1. I think that was on match day 1. So they have 2 wins, 3 draws, and 6 losses. Again, when you look at the points tally, it's not too bad. When you look at the team that is 11th on the Premier League log, and that's Brighton with 16 points, and the team that is second from bottom, the point gap there is only what? It's only about 7 points. Actually, no, yes, only about 7 points. So clearly, it's not a whole mountain to climb. No, I mean watching TV on Sunday nights. Okay, so bye, my guy. Thank you so much, LFC. Always a pleasure to have you around for the shortest of time. But do not forget to leave us a like on the broadcast. So, and really, so when you look at that, again, that's the thing about this Premier League table. And when you look at the team that is currently seated bottom, which is Wolverhampton Wanderers, haven't won a game this season so far. They've only managed 2 draws, and they have 9 losses in those 11 games. But guess what? They are only 8 points away from, a escape surviving relegation, because the team that is 17th is Burnley with 10 points, level with West Ham, who are in 18th place. So that's a mere 8 points. So all these teams, the Premier League table is so fluid that if you put on a good run of 3 wins in a row, or even 4, and maybe a draw in 5, you're going to just climb up that ladder. You're just going to climb up that ladder, because trust me, all those opponents, all the teams that you're chasing, are going to falter somewhere. In this whole pursuit. So now, for example, what happened in the weekend? Tottenham faltered, and then Villa won. United faltered, Chelsea won, and those two, climbed up the table above United. Then Liverpool faltered, and Manchester City have increased that gap, and Arsenal faltered, and then Man City have reduced on that gap. So, anyways, let's go into the Manchester City game. Meanwhile, okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. I expect that game to have returned into the second half already. Inter Milan are still leading by 1-0. Against Lazio. Remember, Lazio are under the charges of Mauricio Sarri. He had left the club at some point and he returned. So the former Chelsea and Napoli manager is the one in charge of Lazio. Anyways, back to the conversation. So the final game of Super Sunday, which was Manchester City versus Liverpool. Now, there's no cause for debate here. I certainly do not think so. Brad Erling Haaland missed a penalty in that one. A penalty that, when you go back to Arsenal's 2-1 victory against Newcastle, Arsenal were denied the penalty for Nick Pope's contact on Victor Gyökeres, so much to the fury of the neutrals, who thought it was a clear and obvious penalty. Those who chose to defend it, they defended it. Now, here we are in a Liverpool game, and there's minimal contact by the goalkeeper, Georgi Mamadashvili, on Jeremy Doku, and the penalty is given. Now, unfortunately, Brad Erling Haaland steps up and he misses the penalty because Mamadashvili serves the penalty. But when he serves the penalty, Haaland comes back to score with a brilliant header in the 29th minute of that game. I'm trying to recall who floated in that cross. To for Brad Erling Haaland to head it into the back of the net. And there's a way it felt like yes, it was Nuno Mendes who floated in that ball. It almost felt like when he hits that ball, he himself doesn't believe it's hitting the target or it's going in. I don't know. But there's that moment of pause. And then suddenly he's surprised that it hits the back of the net before he runs off into celebration. But beautiful header, beautiful goal. Brad Erling Haaland scoring his 14th goal of the campaign. And then in the 3rd minute of stoppage time of the first half, Nico Gonzalez scores the goal to make it 2-0. That strike takes a deflection before beating Georgi Mamadashvili. And then in the 63rd minute of the game, when just after Arne Slot had made some changes, I think bringing on Milos Kakes for Andy Robertson, bringing on Cody Gakpo for Hugo Ekitike, to try and, maybe see a way back into the game. Jeremy Doku, who had been a nightmare for that Liverpool side all night long, scored a brilliant goal to make it 3-0. Now, I'm one of those persons that has oftentimes criticized Jeremy Doku, and rightly so, because my criticism of him has always been constructive criticism. One, oftentimes his end product is lacking. Two, his numbers are still low in terms of goals and assists. They're still low. But there's no doubt that he is a good player. And a very, very capable player, must I add. A very, very capable player, I should say. So watching him watching him in that game against Liverpool, I think for me, that today has been Jeremy Doku's best performance in a Manchester City jersey. Now, I'll be honest, I do not watch every single Manchester City game, week in, week out. Sometimes it's contextual. What time are they playing and, those kinds of things. But I try to watch as much as I can. For example, midweek, for those of you that are regulars on this channel, you know that we watched the Borussia Dortmund game with Manchester City, and I thought, again, they were very brilliant. Phil Foden was quite immaculate in that game, on the night. So was Brad Erling Haaland. But today, I think he had his best game in a Liverpool jersey. In terms of ball possession, it was 50-50. XG was 1.6 for Manchester City and 0.7 for Liverpool. Now, Liverpool struggled to create chances. They really, really struggled to create chances. I think it wasn't until after the 75th minute that Liverpool had a shot on target, and that shot was by Dominic Szoboszlai. Meanwhile, Inter Milan have scored to make it 2-0. 2-0 for Inter Milan against Lazio. Looks like they are bound to, seal the victory here. Christian Chivu are there in celebration for that beautiful, beautiful goal. So I can see Marcus Thuram is on the touch, is on the warm-up side of the pitch, doing his warm-ups. I think was that Hakani Chanalolu alongside him? Stand to be corrected, but give us a moment to review this goal by Boni. DiMarco with a cross, simple tapping for Boni, and makes it 2-0. But what a beautiful cross by DiMarco, right on the money, just right within the 16 yards box, far away from the goalkeeper, and just right on the money for Boni to tap in, and it's 2-0 there for Inter Milan. So, anyways, guys, Manchester City dominated every key aspect of the game, but the possession overall was 50-50. They had a total of 14 shots on goal. 6 of them were on target. Liverpool had a total number of shots at 7. Only 1 was on target. Both had 7 corners each. Gianluigi Donnarumma had 2 saves. Mamadashvili had 3. So, anyways, Manchester City were dominant in every aspect that mattered. They neutralized the threat of Mo Salah. I thought Nico O'Reilly was really, really good in that game. I thought Nico Gonzalez was really brilliant. Bernardo Silva stepped up. Ryan Cherki did not have an impressive performance. I think he's one of those players I do not know, and he will need to correct that about himself. But I'll extend him the olive branch, given that he's new to the Premier League and is still adapting. But for the better scenes of him that I've seen him in a Manchester City jersey have largely been when he's off the bench. And then I think in the EFL Cup against Swansea, I think he started that game. So those are some of the better games that I've seen him in. But more often than not, he's an impact player. And I said this about Pep Guardiola, that I wouldn't be surprised if the likes of Ryan Cherki, started this game, because he came off the bench against Dortmund and scored. He looked brilliant, But the couple of times I've seen him start big games or games in major competitions, that's a Premier League or Champions League, he's not been at it. So looks like he's good coming off the bench, at least for now. So Man City, for me, just a brilliant performance overall. They won the midfield battle. They pressed Liverpool really, really high, won the balls. Liverpool squandered possession, sometimes for fun. They struggled to string passes, especially in Manchester City's half. I thought Conor Bradley did not have the kind of performance he had in midweek against Real Madrid. I thought Dominic Szoboszlai Yeah, one of the better Liverpool performers, but not good enough. McAllister, Gravenberch, you know. Virgil van Dijk thought he had scored when it was still 1-0. He thought he had scored the leveler at 1-1 to make it 1-1, but that goal was ruled out because Andy Robertson was in an offside position by the time Virgil van Dijk heads that ball into the far corner. And Manchester City were really, really impressive in terms of 3-0 to Inter Milan, strike from outside the area, and it hits the back of the net. Brilliant, brilliant goal. Brilliant goal. Wow. Inter Milan are just cruising. 3-0 to Inter. Strike from outside the area. So, like I was saying, and Manchester City were really, really good at sort of setting that offside trap for Liverpool, and it caught Liverpool on a couple of occasions. Oh, is that Bastoni? Brilliant, brilliant goal he scored there. So, Nico O'Reilly, I was speaking about O'Reilly. He had a very, very good game. I thought he even provided the assist for Jeremy Doku's goal. Bernardo Silva had a good game, provided the assist for Nico Gonzalez's goal. It's Zelinski who has scored Inter Milan's third goal of the night. Brilliant, brilliant performance. So I really every time they had a set piece, the goal is being checked. There's a VAR review. Is it on? Is it done? I don't know. We'll see. So every time Manchester City were defending a set piece, what they did is, as soon as they won that first ball, they moved quickly outside of the 16 yards box, and oftentimes Liverpool players were caught napping, so they got caught in offside positions. Meanwhile, Zielinski's goal looks to have been ruled out. There was a handball in the build-up. I think the handball was by DiMarco. Let's review this. No. Looks like the ball hits the top of his shoulder. I don't know if it's for a foul on the player in the build-up. So anyway, it's 2-0. The goal has been ruled out. I think there was a handball. Is it a handball? Is it a foul? One of the two. Meanwhile, Pedro, former Barcelona and ex-Chelsea player Pedro, is still playing, by the way. He's playing for Lazio. Has grown a little bit chubby. You'll see his cheeks and stuff like that. Matteo Guendouzi, who used to play for Arsenal and Olympique Marseille, is playing for Lazio. Then those of you that remember Nuno Tavares does represent Lazio. I don't know if he's part of this game tonight. Not that I've seen him in the couple of minutes that I've watched. But yeah, so beautiful game of football. Man City were the better side. They did everything right. Gianluigi Donnarumma was largely an untroubled guy in goal. Only had that shot to save from Dominic Szoboszlai, and basically that's what it was, And now they have closed in on Arsenal. They have reduced the 6 points gap to only 4, and this is what I told you, that you get to play 3 games and you lose 1 game. If you're Arsenal, you draw 2, and then suddenly they catch up with you. So Arsenal stood to draw against Sunderland yesterday, and Man City's victory means the 6 point gap has been reduced to 4. Arsenal face Tottenham Hotspurs next. If they were to lose that game and Man City win, the 4 points become 1. If they go to Chelsea, and draw, those points would go from 1 point to 2. And if Man City win, then Man City goes ahead of Arsenal and leads by a point. It's just that simple, It's just that simple. So really, when you look at that tally of results, you'll know. But I think the defeat for Liverpool, what makes the defeat for Liverpool really bad is that they are the only team in the top 11 that have lost as many as 5 games. They are the only team to have lost as many as 5 games. All the others have lost 3 games. All the others have lost 3 games or 2. Of course, Arsenal has lost 1. Sunderland has only lost 2. They lost to Burnley and they lost to Man United. That's Sunderland. Chelsea has lost 3. They lost to Brighton. They lost to Sunderland. The other loss was against Man United. Man City has lost 3. They lost to Aston Villa. Who else did they lose to? Manchester City. I'm trying to remember. Who Man City lost to. Besides Aston Villa, I'm trying to recall who they lost to. Was it Brighton? Yes, they lost to Brighton by 2-1. Who was the other? What's the other loss against? Really, I'm trying to scratch my head to find out who else Man City lost to. Let's see. We'll see. Yes, they lost to Tottenham Hotspur by 2-0. That was on match day 2 of the Premier League. They lost on match day 2 and on match day 3 of the Premier League, 2 consecutive games. So really, and ever since then, they hadn't lost until they lost to Aston Villa. So you can see how consistent they had been, really. So, anyways, so yesterday, to reflect more about yesterday's result, Arsenal's 2-2 draw. Again, for a lot of people, the question was what Arsenal could have done to protect the results. I think, first of all, you must acknowledge that they came up against one of the dark horses of the season. Of course, if you want to be a title winner, you ought to do better to win some of these games, even the marginal games. But they were up against a well-drilled side who played with a low block, and they managed to break that low block and score 2 goals. Unfortunately for them, they conceded 2 goals that could have been avoidable, given how well they had been defending prior to yesterday's game. But like I told you, they were never going to be indomitable for the rest of time, Where I felt that Mikel Arteta should have done better was with the substitutions. But also, I felt for him because going into such a game, missing as many as 7 players, all who could be starters, is not a good thing. And that's a factor in that whole conversation, because if you miss out on that context, then you're bound to sort of misjudge the situation. Because I looked at that bench, and one of the players that I initially, before even looking to the bench, I was thinking to myself, oh, he has to bring on, Christian Nogard. But guess what? Christian Nogard wasn't on the bench. So I thought to myself, you have Ethan Nwaneri, you have Miles Lewis Kelly, you had Harriman Hanous, who you couldn't bring on, Doman you couldn't bring on because of the physicality of the game. And I did not think the game in itself suited Ethan Nwaneri. I did not think it suited him for the physicality it had. And maybe the more ideal substitution would have been bringing on Miles Lewis Kelly, because naturally he's a midfielder. He could have slotted him into that midfield and to help a bit with more running and further pressing on to Sunderland, because when they go when we go into that stoppage time kind of zone, Arsenal sort of retreated a bit back. They weren't really pressing high up, and that's what caused them problems in the end, because then Sunderland was bringing the game to them. So, but it's easier said than done, or it's easier to criticize the do of things. But for me, I won't be too harsh on Mikel Arteta, because I looked at the physicality of the game, and really, when you looked at on that bench, there's not many players that would offer you that physique, or that would match that kind of physicality for that game, because the players that would have been able to match that were predominantly defenders. Mosquera, Hincapie, Ben White, really, that's what he had, but perhaps it's another lesson for him. Let's hope it won't be too costly in the long run. The same way we keep saying, it's still early in the season. In the context of the title itself, I think it's the same way we can extend that olive branch or that courtesy to Arsenal, because they came up against a really good side. At some point they were there for the taking, and like I said, in the second half, if they had been more clinical, they would have scored more than just 2 goals and put the game to bed. Matthew Zubimendi missed a chance. Bukayo Saka missed a chance. Declan Rice, when he tried to lob the goalkeeper, put that wide of the mark. But if it had been on target, the story would have been very different. So in that sort of context. But like I said, we won't be too hard on him. Anyways, it's been a pleasure doing this with you guys. Allow me end the broadcast on these 42 minutes that we have covered, coming on to 43. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much, LFC, for being part of tonight's broadcast. Always a pleasure to have you around. And every single one of you that make sure you stay with us for as long as you can, in as far as these discussions are concerned. For those of you that watch our broadcasts long after they've ended, we do not take your love and support for granted. During the course of the international break, I'll be looking to do some interviews, really, to sort of bring you more analysis about the Premier League, in and around the Premier League and things like that. Just pray for me that the people that I intend to seek out in that course will be, will come around to the table to grant us those interviews, and so that we can bring you the very best on the channel. So otherwise, you've always been wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a blessed night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Again, to digest this further, what it means, in that regard. Bye-bye for now. I'll see you guys next time. See you later.